Hello. That seems like a good way to start. Hello. So the idea for this video just came from some friends and some family who I've been discussing these ideas with, but I think it's really important as a creator to experiment and to try new things. And I think that you're always told that, right? You're always told, hey, try new things because you don't know what you'll like. But that's not really that great of a reason because it's like, hey, you might hate something too. And it's like, that's no fun, right? There's safety in sticking to what you like. There's safety in sticking to what you know. You know that if you do a certain thing, then you will probably feel a certain way about it. And I think that especially with so many things, it is so easy to kind of get stuck into a rut because it's like just one more thing that you have to worry about. And so it's like, hey, if you know what to do creatively, if you have an idea of what you want to do, then you might as well stick with it, and then you can worry about other parts of your life. It's really hard to juggle a bunch of new things at once, and so for that reason, I think it's always a good idea to try to have your life in order as much as you possibly can, which, easier said than done. Because I do think that if you have a certain amount of stability in some areas, then it frees up some mental energy to go into experimenting in other areas. And I think that especially if you have a built-up audience already, then I think it can be really hard to experiment because it's like you don't want to fall flat on your face in front of however many million people. And yes, I can assure you there are a million people watching this video right now. Don't look at the view counter. Is this what people mean by manifesting? I'm currently trying to manifest a bacon cheeseburger. Not here yet. So I think that we have to address one thing right off the bat, which is experimentation is scary. And I do think that it is harder to convince yourself to experiment if there are a lot of eyes on you, because it's like if you fail, not only do you fall flat on your face in front of however many people who are watching, but also it's like you don't know if they'll like it. And especially if you're making money doing whatever it is you're doing, then you might worry about, will I be able to feed myself? Will I be able to pay rent? Will I be able to buy gas? And so I think there are a million very valid and fair reasons why you might not want to experiment. But what I'm talking about is just going ahead and doing it anyway, I guess. I think there are good reasons to experiment, and I think there are bad reasons not to experiment. So we're going to talk about those. So one of my favorite reasons for experimenting is that it's a way of testing your limits. It's a way of growing, I think, and learning new things. I was telling a friend about this. If you look at my channel, I've just done so much weird bullcrap, and I kind of love it because of that. So for instance, if you look at my first video, it was a black and white parody of the Canterbury Tales starring vampires. If you look at my second video, it was me talking about Silent Hill 4 in front of a green screen. This same exact green screen, which you can't see because I'm not going to show the green screen because I've done that too many times. If you look at my third video, Dark Souls and the Death of God, it's a very serious video essay about how our sense of meaning can be fulfilled by video games. My fourth video is me talking about Resident Evil and being like, what the frick is this crazy series? My fifth video is the onion history of onion rings, which is the best video I've ever made. And then I've done so many weird videos. I wrote a video about how I want to marry the library. I wrote a video called It's Always Winter in My Mind. I don't even really know what that one is. It's a weird rambling. I did an album review of a Cure album. I did a bunch of Junji Ito videos because those are fun to do and I like Junji Ito. And it's like, yeah, I've done all this weird crap and it didn't succeed every single time, if I'm being completely honest. Because you have to understand that with a lot of these videos that I've made, I had no clue how I was going to edit them. Flat out, I didn't know. Whenever I shot a video about being yourself, it's like, how do you even make a video out of that? And so I think I've picked up all these different weird little skills from trying out these different videos. Whenever I get an idea for a video now, I very rarely think, oh, I don't know how to do that. Or I very rarely think, oh, that's too massive. That's too weird for me to do. And it's like, no, if it is weird, then I will do it. Such as this video where I'm just talking about experimenting and I'm just talking about my other stuff. It's weird. That's not a very good basis for a video, I feel, but I'm gonna do something with it. I don't know what, but something. I think that a lot of my favorite things have come from people experimenting. Thinking of David Bowie, for example, one of my favorite records of his is Low, which was created with Brian Eno, and it was a very weird experimental record. And the back half of that record is all electronic stuff. It's all instrumentals, and it's one of my favorite albums of his. And I think it's almost undeniably one of his most engaging and interesting listens. But it's weird. It's different than what came before. It's not Ziggy Stardust. It's not even Station to Station. No, instead, Low was a new thing. It was something different. And I think it's also important to remember that pretty much everything that has ever been done started off as an experiment at one point. It always started off as someone trying out something new. And I've talked about this before a bit, but there's a quote by William Blake that goes like this: "If the fool would persist in his folly, he would become wise." And so basically the idea behind that is that whenever you start something new, you're always a fool, you have no clue what you're doing. But if you keep on practicing, then you will learn and you will grow, and inevitably you will become the master. That's all that quote means. But I think that the reason I love it so much is because of that acknowledgement that you do start off as a fool, but the fool still has potential. Whenever you start something new, aka whenever you experiment, it's going to be probably not what you want it to be. It's probably going to be bad, maybe. But if you keep trying, then it'll be good. But I think that even if your experimentation does go poorly, I think you're still very likely to get something good from it. Going back to David Bowie, that was kind of the thought process behind his record, right? Was that he was just going to go and experiment with Brian Eno. If it was good, they would put it out. If it was bad, they wouldn't put it out and they would just leave it, you know, and I think that's important to remember, that you can leave stuff behind. If it's not good, then don't worry about putting it out, right? If it sucks, if it's gonna ruin your reputation, then no one needs to know about it. You can just pretend it didn't happen. But if you think that there is something to it, if you think that you're onto something, then it's like, hey, you know, maybe it'll increase your reputation. People may not like it. People don't like a lot of things, but I think that's okay. I don't think that popularity determines whether or not something is good. And if you really get down to it, I don't think there are too many people who believe that. I don't think there are too many people who believe that how popular something is directly correlated to its value. So let's talk about the negative stuff for a bit. What are the cons of not experimenting? They're not as fun. The bad things that come with not experimenting are very, very bad. So one example is that you will begin to hate your work because staleness gets old real quick. I think it's good to be consistently creative, but I don't think it's good to be consistent with what you are creating with regards to subject matter, content, the way you're doing things, etc. Because I think that if you're just doing the same crap over and over and over and over again, I think it's going to get old at some point. Either you're going to get tired of it or the audience is going to get tired of it. People don't like having the same thing force-fed to them. I can't speak for other people, but speaking for myself, if I woke up and had to record the same exact video every single day, then I would just not do this. Like flat out, like I just wouldn't do it. If it wasn't fun or enjoyable, I would be like, nah, screw this. And that's not to say that every aspect of creation is fun or enjoyable, because it's not, and everyone knows this. But at the same time, it's like, if you're not even a little bit happy with anything that you're doing, then like, why even bother doing it? It leads to exhaustion of the creator, and it leads to burnout, and I think it will inevitably cause you to hate your art and to hate your work. As a person, I have a bunch of interests, and as a person, you also have a bunch of interests, and so it's like, why not explore all these interests as opposed to just sticking in one spot and being like, yeah, I'm gonna do this exact same thing for the next 40 years. It's like, that's boring. If you're making the exact same stuff that you were making 40 years ago, then it's like, have you grown as a person? I wouldn't think so. And I think that's another big con of not experimenting as an artist, is I kind of feel like your growth as a creative person is kind of directly related to your growth as a person. And that might sound pretentious, that might sound silly, that might sound weird, I don't know. But I tend to think that some of the best art comes from people who are digging deep within themselves and trying to figure something out. I think that the best art comes from people who are willing to act in the face of fear, and who are willing to try new things, to try to make sense of whatever it is they're experiencing or whatever it is they're feeling. And so I think that's another major con of not experimenting, is that you won't grow as a person, and you certainly won't grow as a creator. If you're not trying new things, if you're not building new muscles, then you're not gonna get better. You're not gonna change. Your work won't change. It'll be boring, it'll be stale, it'll be forgettable. And so I think that experimenting is scary, but I think that staying in the same place forever is much scarier. Because I've heard the saying before that if you're not moving forward, then you're moving backwards, right? Have you guys heard that? I'm not making that up, right? So like, that's a real saying that people say, right? But for years I didn't really buy into it. For years I didn't believe it, because it was like, no, you can stay the same, you can stay where you are and you'll be fine. And it's like, no, that's not true. I don't think that's true at all. I think that you are either going forwards or you are going backwards. I think that if you're not challenging yourself and actively trying to challenge yourself and actively trying to push yourself forward, then I think you will slide backwards. I think that if you are challenging yourself, I think that you will retain the skills that you already have and keep on going. But I think that if you're just okay with resting on your laurels, I think that you'll fade away. And I think that you will lose everything that made you great in the first place, assuming that you attained some sort of greatness. which is a big assumption, I guess. So I think that experimentation is always a good thing. I don't think that the products of experimentation are always good, but that's why they're experiments, because you don't really know what you're getting into. And so I can't ever really fault anyone for trying something new. I can't ever really fault anyone for trying an experiment and failing, because quite frankly, that's how progress is made. Progress is made through people trying and then failing. But in conclusion, I think that not experimenting will eat away at you. I think that it will make you worse off. And I don't think it'll be fast. I don't think it will be a quick fall like Icarus or whatever. And I think that you may not even notice that it's happening. And again, experimentation is incredibly difficult, but I still think there's something to be gained in the struggle. I think that the journey to finding something new is always worth it. Even if you don't actually get something new, I think that attempting the journey, I think that attempting to do something new, to learn something new, to find out something new about yourself, I think it's always worth it. And so I'll leave you with this thought. I don't think you can take seriously anyone who tries to fault you for trying something new. The reason why is because, number one, people who actually have tried something new and have failed aren't going to fault you for trying something new. People who have actually experimented and who should be respected aren't going to mock you for trying and failing because they've done the same thing. And so what that does mean is that the people who are mocking you for trying something new haven't ever tried anything new themselves. They don't know what it's like to fail, because you can't fail if you never try. And so because of that, who gives a crap about what they have to say? William Blake also wrote another line that goes, I think, "The fool's rebuke is a kingly title." And so that's what I got. So thank you for watching and have a wonderful night. See ya.